Hosea 4:6 states, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, because you have rejected knowledge. I reject you from being a priest to me. And since you have forgotten the law of your God, I will forget your children." Welcome to Hidden AmuraKa. In today's video, we are going to take an in-depth look at Angelology and its shadow aspect, Demonology. Now, people often speak of the genius of Freemasonry. Now, I'm not referring to the modern English definition of the word genius. In ancient Rome, the genius was not simply a highly intelligent person, but the individual instance of a divine natural presence in every individual person, place, or thing. This is commonly referred to as a guardian angel. To Greeks, this was the Daemon. Over time, this concept devolved into angels, demons, and Jinn. The genius of man was slowly demonized. This left man in the spiritual dark, disconnected from source, smothering the spark, the Holy Spirit, trapped in matter, the physical vessel, the temple of God, the human body. Now you see, angels, demons, guides, and spirits are nothing more than archetypes and social memory complexes. These are servitors, gregories, or god forms. They are formed by genetic memory expressions, neuroparasitic influences, and neurochemical reactions in relationships to cosmological, environmental, and social events and experiences. Now, what does that mean? Well, to answer that question, we must do a deep dive into the study of Angelology and its shadow aspect, Demonology. Above the physical realm is 7 angelic realms, flanked below by 7 demonic realms, all happening simultaneously. There is different classes of angels and demons, a celestial hierarchy, if you will. So a fair question is, where to begin? Well, 33rd degree Freemason Manly P. Hall writes, "The physical body is supposed to be under the control of the moon, which rules the liquids of the earth. The moon was the last incarnation consciousness in the etheric body of the Moon Lord. Therefore, the lunar spirits are called the ancestors and are known to Christians as angels. These beings have control of the generative powers of animal and man. The ancient Hindu Aryans called these unseen spirits Pitris and Devas. The Persians called them devs. The Greeks knew them as daemons. The Egyptians as Aphorites. The Romans turned them into gods, while the Christians demoted them to angels and demons. Paracelsus called them nature spirits, or like modern ceremonial magicians, elementals. Pythagoras taught that the air is full of souls, which he called genii, heroes, or daemons. He believed that these spirits affected our thoughts, dreams, and health, just like the zodiac. Some of these daemons are beneficial and others are malignant. Same thing like in astrology. Later, daemons were rebranded as demons and became demonized. But was this rebrand by the church in good faith? Well, Socrates taught that each man had a personal daemon, a divine entity which inspired him his whole life. Socrates stated that the individual's personal soul or higher self, their daemon, is the leading guardian daemon of every man. Socrates stated that no daemon has more power over us than our own. Socrates' belief in the personal guardian daemon inspired the concept of the holy and guardian angel. Paracelsus agreed, saying that there are daemons with airy and vaporous bodies. Paracelsus affirmed that souls inhabit the Milky Way before descending into generation or sublunary existence, traveling through the 7 planetary gates under the influence of the 7 cosmo-creators, who are the 7 classical planets. Now, Manly P. Hall agreed, the life coming into our incarnation often chooses its future vehicle or body many years before it appears in the world. Xenocrates taught that the daemons are intermediary beings between the divine perfection and human, like the archetypical psychopumps. It was believed that there was 3 classes of daemons. The first 2 are invisible. They are invisible but clothed with vapory bodies. They are usually invisible but sometimes visible for a few seconds. These are the astral souls or lunar spirits, the ancestors or angels. It was taught that the 4 elements are filled with daemons. Aristotle maintained that the universe is full and that there is no void in nature. The daemons of the earth, air, fire, and water are of an elastic, ethereal, semi-corporeal essence. It is these classes of daemon which officiate as intermediary agents between the gods and men. In the Jewish Kabbalah, the nature spirits were known under the general name of Shadim. Manly P. Hall continues by saying, Paracelsus, the great Swiss physician, who after many years in the Far East returned to Switzerland to teach medicine, first gave to the European world its concept of the nature spirits. He taught that the functions of nature were under the control of little creatures who are invisible to the normal senses, but who, working through the kingdoms of life, minerals, plants, animals, and parts of the human body, kept all these evolving in an intelligent way, under the control of this great celestial hierarchy of Scorpio, which has charge of all bodybuilding in nature. These elements are the invisible intelligence governing the human body and its functions. Hall continues, as already stated, the nature spirits are without hope of immortality. Now, this is important. Although some philosophers have maintained that in isolated cases, immortality was conferred upon them by adepts and initiates who understood certain subtle principles of the invisible astral world. As disintegration takes place in the physical world, so it takes place in its ethereal counterpart of the physical substance. Under normal conditions at death, a nature spirit is merely resolved back into the transparent primary essence from which it was originally individualized: fire, water, earth, or air. Whatever evolutionary growth is made is recorded solely in the consciousness of that primary essence or element, and not in the temporarily individualized entity of the elemental. Being without man's compound organism and lacking his spiritual and intellectual vehicles, the nature spirits are subhuman in their rational intelligence, but from their functions limited to one element, has resulted a specialized type of intelligence far, far ahead of man in those lines of research peculiar to the element in which they exist. Now, the 7 classical planets, like I mentioned, the 7 cosmo creators, rule the 12 zodiac houses and are sometimes referred to as the planetary archons. The Egyptians called them the governors. Now, man either ruled the stars or the stars ruled him. For example, Scorpio is a transformative sign, In itself, the three stages of Scorpio are the scorpion, eagle, and finally the final form, the phoenix. As I mentioned, Scorpio rules the generative organ. G is for generative organ in Masonry. Hall claims that these lunar spirits have control of the general powers of animal and man. This is extremely interesting, as reincarnation is a core belief in the occult. It is believed souls compete for an embryo, a physical vehicle, in order to manifest in the material plane. Hall writes, "It is said that the etheric germ is placed in the body of the parent as long as 20 years before the child comes into the world. This is the result of its search for an environment especially suited to its spiritual and material needs." Samuel Anwar also taught that all plants of nature are living elemental spirits, similar to Paracelsus. He believed that plants should be treated as living beings, harvested at the proper hours, and more. The elementals or nature spirits of all plants are aspects of the Divine Mother in the form of Mother Nature. On a vibrational level and in metaphysics, these nature spirits or elementals are known to have the ability to come in and out of the visible light spectrum. As mentioned, there is 4 main elementals: fairies, gnomes, fire salamanders, and water sylphs, corresponding with the 4 classical elements: air, earth, fire, and water. Helena P. Blavatsky writes, "The author of Epimenides locates between the highest and lowest gods, embodied souls, 3 classes of daemons, and peoples the universe with invisible beings. He is more rational than either our modern scientist, who makes between the 2 extremes one vast hiatus of being, the playground of blind forces, or the Christian theologians who call every pagan god a daemon or a devil. Of these 3 classes, the first 2 are invisible. Their bodies are pure ether and fire. These are the planetary spirits. The daemons of the 3rd class are clothed with vapory bodies. They're usually invisible, but as mentioned, they can sometimes make themselves concrete, becoming visible just for a few seconds. These are the earthly spirits, or our astral souls. As we can see, there are many different unseen beings, from the lower demonic realms to the higher angelic realms. So, the question remains, are these lunar spirits who control the general organs of man negative beings? Well, in the Etruscan mythos, the moon is the underworld, the home of disincarnate souls. Remember, these are the Christian angels. Are these lunar spirits helping our development, the expansion of human consciousness? Is this why Christians label them as angels? That would seem to be a positive connotation. What about the elementals or nature spirits? Are they all negative? I think not. Some lived side by side with men eons ago. But what about the malevolent beings, like the incubus and the succubus? Hall writes, the term incubus and succubus have implied indiscriminately by the church fathers to elementals. The incubus and succubus, however, are evil and unnatural creations, whereas elementals is a collective term for all the inhabitants of the 4 elemental essences, the 4 elements. According to Paracelsus, the incubus and succubus, which are male and female respectively, are parasitic creatures subsisting upon the evil thoughts and emotions of the astral body. These terms are also applied to the superphysical organisms of sorcerers and black magicians. While these larvae are in no sense imaginary beings, They are nevertheless the offspring of the imaginations. These are thought forms. By the ancient sages, they were recognized as the invisible causes of vice because they hover in the ether surrounding the morally weak and continually incite them to excess of a degrading nature. For this reason, they frequent the atmosphere of the dope den, the dive, the brothel. They attach themselves to those unfortunate who have given themselves up to antiquity, like drug addicts and alcoholics, those down on their luck. By permitting his senses to become deadened through indulgence in habit-forming drugs or alcoholic stimulants, the individual becomes temporary en rapport with these denizens of the astral plane. The horrors seen by the hashish or opium addict and the lurid monsters which torment the victims of delirium tremors are examples of sub-mundane beings, visible only to those whose evil practices are the magnet for their attractions. This is Law of Attraction 101. Now that we have covered the nature spirits, what about the planetary archons, the 7 cosmo creators, the 7 gods of Mesopotamia, the 7 gods of Babylon? Now, the 7 classical planets are deified by NASA. The governors or planetary archons are seen to be the biblical principalities of the air that were mentioned by St. Peter. The earliest gods of Egypt, following the mother of gods, were the 8 who ruled in Am-Sama before the firmament of Ra was uplifted, and that they are all known to all Egyptologists as the 8 elementaries. Now, sexual creative energy of man is what these beings are after. This type of energy harvesting produces what is known as louche. Now, the Gnostics believed the material realm was a sort of energetic prison to harvest the divine energies of man, the divine spark in matter. They believed the archons were able to manipulate the illusion, the Maya, that is the material realm, in order to drain humanity's sexual creative energy. The earliest Gnostic sects ascribed the work of creation to angels, some of them using the same passage in Genesis. Irenaeus tells of the system of Simon Magus, Mendander, and Saturnius, in which the numbers of these angels is 7. In the system of the Basilides, the universe was made by the angels of light, who occupy the lowest heaven, but special mention is made of their chief, who is said to be the god of the Jews, Yaldabaoth, who led that people out of the land of Egypt and gave them their law, the Torah. The prophecies are ascribed not to this chief, but to other world-making angels. But are these angels or archons? Valtinius states that the making of the world is ascribed to a company of 7 archons, whose names are given, but still more prominent is their chief, Yaldabaoth, also known as Samuel or Sackless, which means the fool. Gnosticism presents a distinction between the highest unknowable God, or supreme being, and the demiurgic creator of the material, Yaldabaoth. Yaldabaoth's mother was Sophia, which means wisdom. The demiurge, fearing Jesus, who he had intended as his Messiah, would spread the knowledge of the monad, had him crucified by the Jews, his chosen people. At the consummation of all light will return to the source, but Yaldabaoth will be cast into the lower depths. Christ in reality is the son of the good God, the monad. The true believers entered into God's kingdoms. The unbeliever remained forever the slave of the demiurge. According to the Nazarenes, the God of the Jews is not Mary Dikaios, but he is the great archon Yaldabaoth, often identified with the god of the midnight sun, Saturn or Kronos. Now, in our own personal alchemical quest, Saturn is the dweller of the threshold. Humanity as a whole has to face that dweller as well as the angel of presence, and in doing so, that both the angel and the dweller are that complex duality which is the human family. But herein lies the problem. The Roman Empire never fell. It simply became a church. This had dire consequences for the elementals, the fairies and gnomes who once lived side by side with man were now demonized. Paul writes, the Christian church gathered all the elemental entities together under the title of demon. This is a misnomer with far-reaching consequences, for to the average mind, the word demon means an evil thing, and the nature spirits are essentially no more malevolent than any of the minerals, plants, and animals. Many of the early church fathers asserted that they had met and even debated with the elementals. Hall repeats, I will take up your space no further than to repeat that I have seen elementary spirits in many forms and on many grades of the scale of being, and that I believe I have conversed or corresponded with many hundreds of intelligent persons who think with me that they have as good of evidence of the existence of both subhuman and superhuman spirits as of simply human spirits. That intercourse with these realms of being has been far more rare than with human spirits. But as Manly P. Hall explains, thus, man is heaven, earth, and hell in one, and his salvation is a much more personal problem than he realizes. You see, man is a miniature universe, a direct reflection of the cosmos. Man is the microcosm. The universe is the macrocosm. Elias Levi was correct when he stated, man is himself the creator of his heaven and hell, and there are no demons except in his own follies. Now back to ancient Greece, the great polymath and philosopher Socrates, as we mentioned, believed his personal daemon, or soul, guided him his whole entire life. This was his personal muse. He made it clear that no daemon has more power over us than our own. Therefore, demons only have power if we give them consent. Hall finishes by saying, and this too is not magic as the credulous call it. As I have often so said before, magic, a science that violates nature, exists not. It is but the science by which nature can be controlled. Now in space there are millions of beings, not literally spiritual, for they have all, like the Angelolgy, unseen by the naked eye, certain forms of matter, through matter so delicate, air-drawn and subtle, that is, as it were, but a film, a gossamer, that clothes the spirit. Yet in truth, these races differ most wildly, some of them surpassing wisdom, some of them horrible, some hostile as fiends to men, other gentle as messengers between earth and heaven. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe and press that bell to not miss any new uploads. The goal from here on out is one video per week. A lot of absolutely unbelievable, mind-blowing content is coming. I can't even wait to release this stuff to you guys. Follow me on X or Twitter at AmuraKa Hidden, and on Instagram and YouTube at Hidden AmuraKa. That's Hidden AMURAKA. Hidden AmuraKa. Now, if you'd like to support the channel and go far, far deeper, subscribe to my Patreon. And if you want to go even further down the rabbit hole, I have written five books at this point that cover all things esoteric, the occult sciences, from alpha to omega, sexual alchemy to DMT entities, to the power of numbers and everything in between. Thank you for all my patrons and supporters on all social media. You are my reason. Much love. So mote it be.